Right, it's meeting. The call of meeting to order, public leaves all comments until the select board chairman opens the agenda, that's me. Items for public comment, when addressing the board, state your full name, both in person and on Zoom. It is suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom. All right, item 2, appointments, recognitions, and recognitions. Jonathan Nichols, mechanical equipment operator 2, at probationary rate of $24.93 per hour. In March 25th, pending pre-employment, physical, and road screening.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Appointment of Ann Dalton as alternate to the planning board.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, Ann. Consent agenda, draft of the short-term rental ordinance and warrant committee minutes of February 6th and 13th, 2024.
Move approval as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
I was wondering about the draft of the short-term rental agreement. Is there any conflict of interest for those of us board members or others that either may rent or do rent short-term and or in any other way? We've done so much with conflicts of interest. I just was wondering.
Well, if it's helpful, I reviewed the code of ethics and code of conduct very carefully today. And speaking only for myself, I have conflict of interest. So I would be abstaining.
I'm concerned about that for myself as well, so I believe I should abstain as well.
The only comment I would make is that we don't vote to pass the ordinance, we vote to decide whether or not it goes on the chart to the town. I mean, I think divulging whether or not you have any interest at all satisfies the code of ethics. But I'm not a lawyer. We're not deciding what the town will decide. We're deciding whether or not to approve this draft for their decision.
And I'm comfortable with it. As long as there's full disclosure. Everybody's sort of wearing their community long-term thinking hat. But I'm happy with that because, 3 out of 5 people on the board have potential conflict here.
So you don't think,
I don't think at this level, I don't, we're not voting to pass it, we're just voting to put it on the warrant.
I think just stating the fact that you have a short-term rental is sufficient. It just makes me. I don't want.
would it be,
Would you feel more comfortable? Wendy, would you feel more comfortable if we had a legal opinion on that?
I would, just because I personally have said it out loud in the meeting, that I may have to do this and I may have to do that. I feel more with that rather than someone do a story, in the future and say, 3 of us have a conflict of interest, but they still approve. Right, so that's.
The question is whether there's a conflict of interest to vote and whether to move it forward to the warrant.
If any have any potential to either short-term and rental issues.
Sure.
Well, it's not here, but I mean, and I read a great article, I don't know if you guys saw it, that's amazing about. Yes. It just, yeah, you put a lot of things in together, yeah, so I just feel like that I've done anything we shouldn't.
So we're waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? And in favor?
Of the
Consent.
consent agenda of the short-term rental ordinance being tabled.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just a point, I don't think we need to table anything because we're not.
It's just a consent.
Yeah, yes,
So, yes.
Okay, select board reports. Okay, unfinished business, nonprofit funding.
Comment?
Sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm confused. Is there an opportunity for comment? Is this a public hearing about the draft that was diverted from the planning board to your board? Is there going to be discussion about this draft, or is that scheduled for another time? I apologize if I'm interrupting inappropriately.
That's scheduled for March 11th at 6:30. The public hearing.
Thank you very much. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. All right, where are we? Nonprofit funding request recommendations.
I would move that we fund all of the requests that we received and reviewed at our last meeting.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
At the level that they asked for, correct? Thank you.
Yeah.
It's $20,000 more than last year.
So it is and it isn't. It's 20,000 more with the agencies that requested, but there are half a dozen agencies that aren't being funded. Sure. So it's actually less money overall, but the ones that you are funding is at a higher level. So.
Okay.
All in favor? Good. Review and approve contract with EMR for Spillway Field.
We had this on the agenda last.
Yep.
Meeting. A few things that I wanted to clarify relative to that particular contract, and we did get a response from our legal counsel regarding the auto renew and the need to go to annual town meeting. And within the contract, it does state that the original contract goes to annual town meetings. Renewal has no such need, and so the auto renewal can go forward, and it's just a matter of approval from the select board. Doesn't have to go through the annual town meeting. It was just the original contract that was required. That was the intent at the time, as I understand it, and that's how our legal representation understands it. The way the contract is written, and the contract itself has some minor freshening that's required. There's some updated particular entities within it, but it's only a matter of refreshing things. The contract as it is substantive, it's the same and recommended for review.
So you would no longer be seeking to move the auto renewal date from March to May?
Because it doesn't go to town meeting,
Right.
there's no need.
Perfect.
I would move that we accept Brian's recommendation and allow that auto renewal to go forward. Understanding that there will be some minor tweakage that he will bring back to us for final approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
New business. Okay, MDES budget review.
For those who don't know, Mike's in the news, let's make one. And I want to introduce Heather Dorr, who is the new principal of the Mount Desert Elementary School. And she is going to do a little presentation, as you've seen in the past, but first grader, the work that's happening at school this year, and then we'll present our budget to you. So, that's right. Oh, yes. You can actually have that, but it doesn't. This is the review sheet that we'll go over. You don't have that, that's good. Oh, yeah. You have. Yeah.
So. I wanted to start by giving kind of an at-a-glance overview of, student enrollment and staffing and things like that. So we'll start with our enrollment. Currently, we have 152 students enrolled in DES, and that's, grades pre-K through 8. And I've broken down, underneath the enrollment by the percentage of the 152 students that are in pre-K and then in the K-8 grade span. I did that because when you look at the budget report, the regular instruction lines will be broken down by pre-K, K2, and 3-8. And then looking ahead to next year, we do promote 21 8th grade students this spring. And we are looking to receive up to 16 pre-K students. So our enrollment will adjust to 146 students. I know the math doesn't work clearly there, but we do know of one student that will not be returning next year. So that's where that extra one student is. And again, the breakdown by percentages across pre-K, K2, and 3-8. For specialized services, that's the percent of students at MVES that receive specialized instruction through an IEP or have specific accommodation that receive supports and services from gifted and talented. I did want to just clarify that, for example, 36% of this year's enrollment receives specialized services, but then the 13%, 9%, and 21% is of the total enrollment, not of the specialized services percentage. So 13% of 152 students have an IEP and receive specialized services through that plan. 9% have a 504, and 21% receive supports and services through our gifted and talented program. And then looking at our student population anticipated for next year, you'll see those percentages displayed in the third column. It was a little tricky to organize a snapshot of our staffing because we have 52 staff members that interact with our students in a variety of ways, from bus drivers to custodians to classroom teachers to interventionists. And then we also have services that are provided by individuals contracted outside of our district as through our AOS through our district. On a daily basis, we have 12 general classroom teachers. We have 5 specials or essentials teachers. Our students receive art, physical therapy, physical education, music, Spanish, and technology, as well as social emotional learning and library 2 times a week, each week. So we're very fortunate to have such rich programming available for our students. We have 2 special education teachers. One focuses on our kindergarten through 5th grade population. The other supports our middle school students. We have 1 MTSS 504 coordinator. She also has a little role of literacy intervention as well. We have 3 interventionists, 1 for math, 1 for K4 literacy, and another for behavior. We have 1 social worker. A talented teacher is currently a 2/10 position, 20%. Which if you think back to our percentage of our population that receives gifted and talented services, 21% of our student population is served by our gifted and talented teacher, and she's a 0.2 or a 20% position. We have 10 individuals that serve as ed techs at our school, totaling 9.8 FTE or full-time.
one of our ed techs works 3 days a week. Have a part-time gardening class coordinator that does an outstanding job of integrating classroom instruction and
The people on Zoom are
Yes.
having a hard time hearing
Oh.
it, it's really hard now.
yes. Oh, there we go. So our garden and greenhouse coordinator partners with classroom teachers to align what they're doing in the classroom with what they can learn in the greenhouse. We have a part-time speech language pathologist right now. The remainder of that position is made up through contracted services through an online speech therapist. Because we were not able to find a speech therapist. We do have one American Sign Language educational interpreter, 2 office staff, 1 facilities and maintenance supervisor, 1 full-time school nurse, and then we have 2 custodians, and one of our bus drivers fills in some time as a 3rd custodian, and then we have 3 bus drivers. We currently have a bus driver vacancy that's filled by our facilities and maintenance supervisor. So we're kind of stretching our people a little bit in that area, but hoping to resolve that when we find another bus driver. And then, like I mentioned, occupational therapy and our school psychologist and our IT. I'm not exactly sure. Wendell does everything, so I'm not sure what that title is, but Wendell is provided through the AOS, and then we contract their services for this therapy. So again, any variety of the 52 individuals that work with our students are at our school from day to day. This year and moving into next year, we are focusing specifically on 2 school-wide goals. Our first goal is that we feel safe and focused on learning. We have put a focused effort into strengthening our social emotional learning practices. All of our teachers have been or will be trained in responsive classroom. We actually have a professional development coming up this month to strengthen those practices. We've also partnered with Down East Restorative Justice to train staff and work with students on strengthening community through community circles and restorative practices. And our behavior interventionist and our social worker have been collaborating to support students in learning ways to take care of themselves and take care of each other and take care of our school. Our school-wide goal is that MDES curriculum and instruction provide multiple entry points for students of all abilities, interests, and backgrounds to access and engage in intellectually challenging work and to develop higher order thinking skills. And this essentially focuses on ensuring research-based best practices are employed in all of our classrooms, and that teachers are using high-impact teaching strategies. And we're making sure that learning is accessible to all of our students. We do have the opportunity to provide rich and rigorous learning experiences outside of the regular classroom, but also integrated within the regular classroom. Students have gone all over the island for field trip and experiential learning opportunities. They've gone all through Katy National Park. Our 3rd graders created a bus tour of the island. So they researched different places of around the island, and then Mr. Sargent took them all on the bus and they went through the route, and the kids gave their spiel about their part of the island that they researched, and they got to use the radio and talk. So it was really neat. They also hike, and they do all of the junior ranger Katy National Park field trip opportunities. This week we have 4th graders going into the into Soames Pond. It was supposed to be an ice fishing trip, but now it's not. But they're gonna be, looking, finally looking for animal tracks and, learning about the, environment and ecology in that area. Our kids have gone to Augusta, to the Blaine House. In a couple months, they'll go down to Portland to the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. So a lot of opportunities for kids to get out of the classroom and bring back their learning and also take what they're learning in the classroom and taking it out into the community and surrounding areas. We have a variety of ensembles. We do partner with Connor Emerson. We have some students that have joined their show choir. At our school, we have a jazz band, a chorus, and then different levels of symphonic band. So we have a beginner band, and then an advanced band. Our jazz band just qualified for state competition, so that was really exciting. Athletics, there's actually people playing basketball in our gym. The basketball program is expansive, intense. Yeah. Our students right now, in between basketball and baseball and softball starting up, are playing floor hockey 2 nights a week. But we have soccer, cross country, basketball, softball, baseball, and spring track. And then for this month, we'll have floor hockey as well. I did mention our gardening program a little bit earlier. We have a full-time technology integrator who is working with several different classes. They're doing coding. Our pre-K and kindergarten students are learning how to program these little, they're called bee-bots. They're little bumblebees, and they have to make them go on a certain path on their mat on the floor. She also partners with our middle school teachers to integrate technology into their units and instruction. Students have opportunities for community service. We had a community service day back in November, I think. Kids went to different places around the island to provide some community service. They've also worked with Neighborhood House and served meals there. Environmental stewardship is another opportunity where students are learning different ways to take care of our island and their environment. I mentioned also the social emotional learning opportunities that are spearheaded by our behavior interventionist and our social worker. Coming up in April, we have Arts Week. Students will be able to learn from several different artists on the island that have partnered with us to provide a week of different art classes. Things like sewing and fiber arts and some cooking and all different kinds of things for them to explore. And then really kind of all of this wraps up into learning how to be responsible citizens and practicing being responsible citizens in our school. And that takes us to our budget. So, yeah, we are.
So I wanted to, I think this is the first time that this board has seen the summary sheet. And this is something that I started, I want to give some history. I started as a principal at one of my schools to provide sort of an overview for the board and to be able to share it at town meeting that sort of describes the overall revenue summary that schools have. And then it broke down the budget by the articles that folks vote on. So regular instruction, special education. And because AOS board members, they come from very different schools, when they come to the AOS level, they're all taking a look at a similar budget. So I thought it was really important for my role to give folks sort of a clear lens, a similar lens across their experiences when they're meeting with their principals, and the same for select board members. So I've asked my principals this year to all use this sheet when we are presenting our budgets to our select boards and our councils. And then, once the budgets are passed, then this has all the similar information, so when folks are at town meeting, when someone wants to know what is other instruction co-curricular, it gives a little description, because that's often a question we hear year after year. And then you can sort of see right there what the budget was, the current year, the proposed, what the difference is, and then what might be the factors that lead to it. And so that's sort of what this sheet provides for our school board members and then select board members, and sort of understanding how we put together the budget. On this sheet, I wanted to sort of share, after we go through this with Heather, I just wanted to note on the backside in the areas of transportation and facilities and maintenance, and then over on the summary, you'll see an addendum, because over the last 2 weeks, and since you received the budget, we've learned some news about our school buses and some needs that we have. And then there were some other capital needs that we figured that we can address in this current budget based on, what we had shared last year, what we were gonna do with those funds. Needs have changed, and we want to sort of say what we're gonna do with this year's funds, and then how that's gonna impact the amended version, and that amended version is actually to the better. After we took a week and we had some of the issues, and we did, and our school board hasn't seen this yet. They got this afternoon to be able to look at it, and then they'll look at an amended budget on Wednesday. So that amended part is what we're going to bring to the school board on Wednesday, and then those differences are laid out. So with that little introduction, we'll sort of start with the revenue summary, and all schools receive a series of revenues, and for schools like Mount Desert or Tremont or Trenton, we are known as minimal receivers, so we rely mostly on taxpayer dollars to sort of fund their schools. And so for Mount Desert, there's 3 major areas: carryover, state subsidy, and then what the taxpayers provide for our school. And that first column is our carryover, and carryover fluctuates from year to year depending on who you have as teachers, if they were either sometimes you gain revenue, gain monies because you got a brand new teacher, and someone who retired that was at the top of the scale moves away, either projects that don't get done, insurance monies that come in at a better rate than the 10% that we usually budget for. And so that carrier number fluctuates, and that sort of is one aspect of revenue that goes from year to year. State subsidy, that is our state subsidy that comes in, and luckily this year we got more than what we had anticipated, so that's a good thing. And then the town appropriation. And I sent you all a letter regarding our carryover, because it looks very different, and you'll see that right across. And in last year's budget, when Nancy and I were putting the budget together, and in the letter I sent, what's that? Yeah, but I missed it, and as I went through the process, so in the as I stated in the letter, we had, last year was the last year for the debt. And so that number didn't get into the anticipated line. And we noticed that, and then we took a look at the budget to make sure that we would be sort of okay in terms of the hiring. And so Nancy and I sort of spent a lot of time on that. And so our proposed carryover that we're putting into this budget is 52,000. Part of that is the incoming error we made. So I just wanted to make that pretty clear that we paid everything, but we didn't put that money in the anticipated. We are sending out the budget $100,000. That doesn't show up here, holding on to that. And if you were to look at the budget on the first page, some of the things that we've offered in schools in terms of protecting that carryover to save some money out as we go into next year, so that we have funds going forward. So based on this budget, we're looking at it, we thought it would be pretty prudent to sort of hold out that $100,000. So that will go into sort of carryover for next year. But this budget is built on the 52 in carryover, and then you add the 310, and that sort of gives you what we have from the state, and then what would go into appropriations. So now I'm going to pass it over to Heather to start talking about the budget, and she'll sort of go through the sheet and talk about regular instruction and then all the areas of the budget.
So regular instruction, that is the, pre-K through 8 classroom specials, salaries and benefits, tuition for professional development, and, staff travel, all of our, instructional supplies, equipment and books, and that's, again, pre-K through 8. We are proposing, a 9.92% increase from the previous year. And that is to account for teacher salaries and benefit increases. We also have several new staff members that are in graduate programs, thank you, words, graduate programs, and to fulfill their certification requirements, do need to continue taking courses. So there is an increase there to account for that tuition reimbursement. We also have some needs for updating some of our classroom furniture. So those, that accounts for that increase. Our special education cost center stays pretty close to the same, just some slight adjustments, because we have both of our teachers are new to us this year, and one is brand new. So there were just some adjustments to the salary and benefits. Other instruction, co-curricular and summer school, was actually a decrease in that line. Our summer school is now, there's an AOS-wide summer school, that takes place at Trenton, so that, provides some cost savings there. Student and staff support. This is where the school counselor or social worker, school nurse, and our share of district level curriculum and tech support. Also our library and technology. There is a slight increase that was requested by the library. Our students receive their library programming through the Northeast Harbor Library. So Amy Whitehart and I to discuss what that would look like, and that she had requested a slight increase. We also have some increases in salaries and benefits. That's also the line with our computer lease. It's from all of our students have a 1-to-1 laptop or iPad ratio. And then the curriculum and technology line is where our districts, our subscriptions for our programs that students access for supplementing academic instruction. Those are purchased at the district level because we actually get a better price to purchase a district license rather than a small school license. So that was an increase of 11.38%. System administration, this is MDES's share towards AOS 91. It also includes our school board stipend and legal and auditing fees and advertising. There's an increase of 3.5% there. MDES's share to the AOS formula, or according to the AOS formula, is less than last year, but it's 11.79%. Speak to that if you want me to keep going.
No, it's a digital formula. So it's a.
School administration, the increase here is primarily due to field trips being moved into that cost center, so they came out of another. So there's a 2.44% increase there. The current proposed budget for transportation and buses has a 24.35% increase that is that accounts for salary and benefits increases and also insurance. It looks like a large percent, but if you look at the dollar amounts, it's less than that. And then facilities and maintenance, operations and maintenance of the, building and capital outlay, is looking at a decrease of, 2.18%. And then the last item is our, food service, which, we're proposing an increase of 6.67%, which, is, we looked at what we paid out last year to make sure that we budgeted enough for this year based on what we spent last year. So now we'll talk about the red things. We did learn that our bus fleet will be down 2 buses very soon. We have 1 bus that will not pass inspection now, and another bus that will not pass inspection in August, both due to undercarriage corrosion. So in an effort to address that need, as well as to address the need for an enclosed pre-K playground, and looking at the timeline for getting an enclosed pre-K playground in place for the upcoming school year, we looked at what we have remaining in our capital outlay for this year and what we could use from this year's capital outlay to take care of some of those needs, and then redistribute some of the funds for next year. So what we will be proposing to the school committee on Wednesday is to add 30,000 to the transportation and buses cost center to account for a second lease for a bus. That increases that line by 38.72%. But we were able to, we are proposing removing $150,000 from capital outlay, because we'll be able to take care of a lot of those needs from this year's capital outlay, which reduces that line by 18.26%. So the current budget that is all in the black text has an increase of 6.08%, but we're going to the school committee to request an amendment, I guess, that would increase the budget only by 3.77%. And then for the town appropriation, currently we're at a 17.81% increase, which would be $32.94 per $100,000 valuation. But the proposed amendment would reduce that to 15.7% increase at $28.04 per $100,000.
And then our reserves, other than the bus reserve, they're pretty healthy for a school like this. The maintenance reserve is 154,000 from this unexpected issues that pop up. Special education reserve at 12,000 could easily take care of a person who came in and had out of district placement. And then the AOS has a reserve that lasts at $3,000. So the school had multiple students come in specifically with that was an unbudgeted need, and they depleted their own reserve, and the AOS has a reserve that all of our schools can sort of dip into. And then the bus reserve is sitting at 45,000. And so the overall, after recognizing that we had some issues and there were some things that were in our capital plan for last year, which we were utilizing the funds from what we were paying in the debt to be able to take care of some of the issues at the school, recognizing that we needed to make some shifts, particularly around the playground issue, and then the need for the bus sort of played into those changes, and the fact that we didn't need necessarily that, to be able to sort of get back to the town, part of that 100,000 to take care of some of those needs. So that 170 going back was a recognition that, hey, there's some things that we said we could take care of that. And then recognize that, you know, we don't need to hold on to that 170,000 to help lower our budget to budget and more specifically lower the appropriation.
How much does a school bus cost?
Still up. I think.
125.
125.
People, friends.
Yes.
A lot of that made sense to me. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the debt payment that the amount of which was almost matched by some requests for windows and things last year. Did those things get done?
Mhm.
They did.
So
Okay.
there were a couple things that hadn't gotten done. So window treatments being the one.
Well, yeah,
Because in our building project, we're looking at replacing all of the windows. So when the window treatment people came in to take measurements, we were kind of like, if we're replacing the windows, are the measurements gonna be the same? And are we looking at spending money on something that won't fit after we replace the windows? So that was one that has not been taken care of, but all of the other items have been done. Our like bleachers, we're still working on accepting a bid. And a lot of the things that were budgeted for, that were done, came in under the budget.
I'm just looking at, I mean, just as a commentary, the town appropriation. Since 22, 23 to 23, 20 to 24, 25 is up about 35%. Which is just enormous.
It looks to me, it looks to me as if most of the increases, not all of them, are just people.
Yeah.
This is a all across the board for the schools, is that correct?
Yes. Yep, the salaries, the increase that's going into next year is a 7.48% increase for salaries for next year. We did budget 10% increase for teachers. The support staff, CBA that was done a couple of years ago, their increase is 6.6%. That's going into this budget. And insurance was budgeted at 10%. We had done, year in and year out. One of the things that Nancy and I have been sharing with boards is that folks have been, since COVID, have been actually taking care of their needs medically. And so the usage of Blue Cross has been high, and that's been seen sort of, across the state and across the nation. So when we get that increase, usually if your usage is higher, then they'll bump up your percentage. And last year, our increase was
6%.
6%. Yeah, and so we're guessing that we'll be under 10, which is good, but not as far under as we have been in the past. We've had years where it's been 0, which has been a really good thing, but the last couple of years, we'll probably be still either at 6 or potentially 7%.
You lease your buses? You don't buy your buses?
We had, a few years ago, we had to replace one right after another, like 2 years in a row. So they didn't have enough in the reserve to buy 2. So leased one, bought one. And then it's, of course, you can only put so much in the reserve because there's like 8 or something goes in the reserve each year besides the lease payment. So you don't build up your reserves.
They put in for a plan, see what they be in the down.
The work plan, we actually met this morning with Brian and to sort of take a look at that overall and try to draw out a plan of what that could look like, moving forward. So it would be more like a CIP situation.
Yeah.
With buses typically, is that the reason that they tend to be seeing their lifespan is their chassis are rusted out?
That's it. And then we had talked about whether it was undercoating, and then Brian sort of spoke with the mechanics, and actually undercoating is not a good idea. Because it ends up attracting some kind of, it's not done well, it attracts stuff and then it gets worse. So I can tell my son not to do that to his truck, if he really wants to.
So why, you know, it seems to me we had decisions about, you know,
I don't believe we have, and that is something that we did talk about recently as well. And that's. And then this is what he's. Yes. The mechanic is pretty clear. It doesn't, it oftentimes makes more.
Would that be the same as with fluid film?
I don't know.
I know it has to be applied annually. I don't know, costs, maybe they're prohibited to do it annually, I don't.
I don't know that it would be, and certainly a question I can bring to Cory, something we could implement just as we wanted to, as it was necessary, and on particular pieces of equipment for the plow trucks and all that, we tend to scrape and repaint them every year.
Right.
And I don't think we want to go through that necessarily with the buses, but potentially fluid film is a way to try and hold back, yeah. Yeah, it's it isn't a fixed spray coating like the undercoating, but it does,
It's a rust inhibitor, basically. Has a good shelf life, almost a year, so.
yeah.
Just curious. I don't know what's actually going on.
It's not like the money disappeared.
Do you have to buy full-size buses? Because I want 77 parents driving their kids to school every day. I swear, any parent must have 2 or 3 kids in the car, so, I mean, I almost wonder some days if a minivan would get like a share in school. Rather than.
They might be doing that on spawns.
Yeah, but, so, is it necessary to buy a full-size bus?
I think it's the same price as a full-time bus, pretty much.
Yeah.
Short bus, mini bus. The school, I'm pretty sure, like.
It's just like by the window. Swans Island, by a little bit shorter bus because of where they could go on the island. And actually, I think that bus.
Does not standard.
Yeah.
So, 2014 and 2016, so the one of them is 10 years old and the other is 8. So the two are.
Usually the cycle is 10 years, but the say shortest.
You know.
Well, I know the buses, certainly security, or a lot better. Yes. The buses are, tell you that. From first experience.
That's. Quick question, the total appropriation of the 17.81. 5,159,78, what do we do under the 16?
It's 5 people, 39 or 78.
Yeah, it's the red, in the red. Oh.
I got it.
You got it.
On the back, on the summary, it's in red on the last.
So we.
As of Wednesday.
Yeah.
Questions?
Thanks, Jack.
Well, so down in the fire hole.
Fenced-in playground? Sure. Are you fencing in the pre-K kids from the big kids or just fencing in the schoolyard?
So we're actually looking at, creating an enclosed play space. I don't know which direction on it, it's off the side of the building, so students be able to leave their classroom and go right out onto, it's on the town, the Gilpatrick Street side, right? Garden. So, and it would be just for pre-K and kindergarten, and the reason for that is because the current play space, is actually designed for children 5 to 11. So our pre-K kids are, they're too high up, they have to hyperextend limbs to reach everything. And it's not designed for them, and it's not enclosed. So,
Has to be enclosed.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then I had one other question. You said that there was special ed in the kindergarten. Is there also special ed in pre-K as well?
So, special ed services for pre-K are provided currently, right now, from, Child Development Services, CBS.
And is that gonna change?
Yes. The state just moved some legislature to change that.
So then now the school will be providing those services?
Well, eventually, the starting point will be that schools will have to provide, case management for those students. So at least in the proposal is that by the case management, so we'll be writing the plans, and CDS will still exist and we can utilize their services. And some CDS regions have better staffing. Right now in our area, our CDS area that covers Hancock and Washington County, they come to the schools to provide like special education services, not special education, or speech and language services. So we will we contract with the state and then we get reimbursed for those, if we have staff that can do it. And so the idea is to basically have the schools case manage, and if they have staff to be able to provide those services, then they would provide upfront funds per student for the special education. And so rather than the formula that's at work now, where you don't see money from your special education for 2 years, for pre-Kers, in the proposal from Pender Macon is that schools would receive that upfront. But then it would be the school responsibility rather than this quasi agency. And that's not a bad idea, and a lot of states do that because it's really good to have schools have an eye on these students and provide the services knowing what they're getting and going into. Might be a little bumpy on the way there. And the funding mechanism is going to be really important so that we don't get back into the situation where we're in. So if that comes through where they're gonna front load, then that might sort of help on that.
Yeah, she did.
Were you having, we did, finding people, qualified people?
Yes. So we're exploring all kinds of avenues, like putting ads on radio, which is new to me, something that we do with my bus drivers. But I'm encouraging news today. I sent some staff who were up at the University of Maine at Farmington, and they had a job fair. And the last time we went as a district, I think 2 people stopped by our table. I heard today that we had, at least 15 people, and they had filled out a form that we had created, what's their, who they are, what certification they're planning on getting, and then their email address, so that when we have openings, we'll send out that information to those students. And then we're going to the University of Maine in a couple of weeks to do the same thing. So hopefully that, will drive.
Is it the cost of living problem here?
I think that's part of it. I know in my time here as super, just the last 2.5 years, we've had a couple people who wanted to come here but couldn't find housing and ended up having to go elsewhere. And so I know that's.
It's my understanding that the element, some this summer for the summer camp for the neighborhood house, which I know affects their enrolled summer camp, which affects their bottom of their budget, and I'm just wondering. So
Parts of it, well, so we are having the gym floor redone, so sanded down, stripped, repainted and varnished. So depending on when that work takes place, the gym will not be available for that reason. We'll have the pre-K playground work being done, which doesn't necessarily impact neighborhood house because it is on that, street side of the building. They also asked to use our, downstairs locker rooms and cafeteria, and we invited them to feel free to use that space. They asked about the forum, but that's the only space in the school that's large enough for custodians to lay out all of the rugs that are used in the classrooms for shampoo and cleaning. So we weren't able to.
There are no classrooms that they can do that, move desks and.
Not while they're also stripping and waxing floors.
the neighborhood house strips and waxes their floor in like a week when they do it.
But the floor's a lot smaller than the ways in every classroom, and the high school do the same.
I think the gymnasium.
But it takes 2 weeks after a gym floor is done to completely dry. So like the high school, when we shut our gym down, it's over 30 days from day one, when they sand, varnish, and then they get done and it's locked up for 2 full weeks because it has to dry. It's a twice. And I think you're doing.
Yeah, they have to strip it down first and then paint it and then resurface, or
It's really, unless you're in the school building in summer, it's unbelievable what gets done. And I never would have known that, so I spent my summer in school, and just to wax the classrooms, it literally takes all summer. By the time you clean out all the furniture and strip the first layer off, and then, I don't know, buff and blah, blah, blah. So,
Gym floor is extending for water, you know, water base. It's a little bit, sure.
and then for you, I like, we schedule ours like a year in advance to get it done for fall sports. And so you probably.
so that's the thing, right? I present to Susie, we have these projects, I don't know what the timelines are. I don't know what I mean, I'm happy to have them in the gym and the cafeteria and the locker rooms, and obviously the outside spaces are fine, but until I know when the gym is gonna be done, I can't promise that space, or I can promise it and then have them have to change their plan because the gym will be. It didn't feel good. My favorite thing coming in the summer, right after I was hired, was seeing all the kids there, and it was great, and I would love to continue that connection, but we have to make sure that our school projects get done too.
Great. This probably. Item B, review and approve rejection of bids for construction sidewalks in Soamsville. We're gonna, I'd like a motion to table that.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? More.
Well, I don't think.
One, two, four. Good, great.
We hope that the, and of the sums of the line with the sidewalk. Well, I was gonna say like. Steve, in there.
He was thinking we would put something, get a bunch of taken.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Good.
Okay, new business, item C, consider authorizing the Mount Desert Regional High School to grant scholarships of $350 from the Reynolds Trust Fund to 100. The Stanley Trust Fund, Mr. Spelman, Finance Director, anyone?
Second.
All in favor?
I'm gonna abstain from this one, because I do scholarships, so I have to work.
Thank you.
Okay. Other business, any other business? No.
Could I just say that this room is used again? I keep getting awful audio reports from people that are trying to zoom in, so
I'm sitting on a hearing, it's hard to hear.
there you go.
Yeah, pizza the town manager.
In this room, it ought to be good.
Oh, I did, elementary school.
Welcome to Zooms.
Those is a meeting up here.
Yeah.
But not to participate.
It's actually street.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's street.
There's no. Same, problem. We have one little microphone for a big huge room.
I'll be happy to get the wireless stay. All right, warrants approved and signed, town invoice AP 2454, the amount of $354,000 cents.
Move approval and signature.
They should say 3
So,
Oh, yeah.
Approval and signature state fees and payroll benefits, AP 2451, AP 2453, and town payroll fee. In the amount of $164,337.24.
Move approval.
second.
Favor.
Another abstention.
And 2453 should be 229, 209. I apologize.
Oh. Acknowledgement, school invoices, school payroll, PR 18, in the amount of $88,556.
Vote acknowledged.
Second.
I'm gonna vote on this.
Move adjourned.
Oh, something in the chat.
All in favor?
Chat?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's 5 minutes, before I mean, I'll be on.
Um,
Have they heard?